everybody, back on another episode, the Cardheads YouTube channel. I am Greg, and I am honored tonight to sit with Rodney Christensen, aka the Card Killer. How are you tonight, sir?
Good, my friend. How are you? How you been?
Doing well, doing well. I know we've been playing tag to get this done over the last few weeks, and we finally got to do it. So I'm excited to have more of a creative styled interview here.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here, man.
Awesome. So for the people who don't know who you are and what you're about, could you give us just a brief little backstory?
Sure. When it comes to this arena, I suppose, whether it be art or collecting, I've been doing it for decades and decades. I mean, I started art when I grabbed a microphone and was singing at 2 years old. So it's just been in my life my whole entire time. The art and the drawing, everything I started when I was 4. So it's basically all I've ever known and stuff like that. I've gone through our programs in school all the way through high school and then art for college. Uh, and the sports collecting, the card collecting was always, that started when I was also like 11 or something. I started collecting with friends. My entire neighborhood collected cards at the time. It was 89. That's the perfect time to get kids involved because junk whack wasn't really expensive and there was plenty to go around. So we had a good time, for a few years there. I played baseball when I was in Little League and then in high school a little bit. But I always concentrated on the art. So I went to art school in Manhattan for that. And, the cards kind of started creeping into the work. Eventually, I guess it was just like kind of, it was meant to be. It just took time to figure out. I started putting cards into the fine artwork. Maybe I would say about, I think we're looking at about 6 or 7 years ago now. So that was just putting the, cutting up cards and then putting them in as like mixed media into the work, they really weren't sports orientated at the time because I was, in fine art world and I was doing like kind of like abstract landscapes or are kind of like homage paintings that that kind of just like kind of sent the message. The homage paintings were highly recognizable, so it was just kind of to show the style that I was after, by doing those paintings. And over the years it just kind of, the sports card itself kind of fused together with that. I, instead of putting the cards into big paintings, I put the cards back into the cards because I kind of figured out that if I was going to get the attention of someone who wanted to buy, sports, like a mixture of sports and fine art, who better than the collectors that that I was growing up with and that I was myself, because I know how they operate. They're obsessed. It's just one of those things that when it clicks, it clicks. So once I figured out that that was going to be my angle, I would say, we're talking early 2019. So this was before the pandemic or anything like that. But I kind of just, switched angles. Sometimes if one thing is not working, I kind of just switch angles and take a new approach to see what kind of response I would get. And based on the response that I would get, it kind of shows you the path in a way, right? So I completely took away my personal identity, and I created a character that was basically telling the story of some menacing villain in the hobby, cutting up cards, because that it's really, at first you would think that's blasphemy, and who does that? Why do that to our precious hobby, right? So And then, very, very quickly, it became this thing of, well, now let's just make it more entertaining, and a little less straightforward. So I got a little bit more complex, and it just took a matter of a couple of months before I knew that there was just something really, fun going on there, because people were getting entertained, they were getting the shock value of it, and then I started showing them the art on the, kind of like a few months after that. It was always kind of designed that way to have the progression of the character show you a little bit more as time went on. By the end of that year, I was kind of making the art cards, and either putting them together with a project, or giving them away sometimes. Um, and it naturally progressed from there. It's just, there's a lot of people in that scene now, and we're all kind of making cards together. I mean, every day you can go and check. I mean, I'm on Instagram mainly, and you can hashtag the search word card art, and you'll just see, God, you'll see maybe 20, 30 new pieces a day. Like, and that means you're going to see 100 a week.
Right.
There's definitely, it's a cool little fun scene going on. There's a lot of people dedicated to it, and they're all collectors too. So but they all have a creative side to them. So why not give it a shot? And so it turns out, these artists, are making some awesome work, and you're selling them to the collectors, so the collectors are aware of them. And this scene kind of just, as it progresses, it just gets a little bit more like, what I would consider legitimized, because
Mm.
some people would just be like, oh, that's just craft or whatever like that. But the more we get into it, the more concepts kind of flow into it. It really does have a mind of its own, and there really is no limit to what you can imagine, just as long as you could keep it in that format. Which, don't let that format limit your concepts. So people are really taking different steps in it, and it's developing by the day right now. So, like, it's just fun to be in. It really is.
Yeah. The way you ended there, like it brings a fun tone and like a fun attitude into, the hobby. And over the past few years, right, it seems like the hobby has gotten a lot more serious in like many different ways. And so this was kind of like a refreshing twist, if you will, into like what was going on traditionally, right? And to the point you made, um, obviously, like it rubbed some people the wrong way, and I'm sure it always will. Like you can't please everybody with anything. So, but with that being said, to your point, you see more and more of this work coming along. You see more and more artists, um, getting into that specific area of, the hobby, but also like in their career, if you will, and their um, like artistic outlets, right? So, can you kind of touch on that a little when you decided to start doing the cards instead of using the cards for like these abstract paintings? Um, what was did you start off with, what, I'm just gonna do this for fun, like I
Yeah.
like doing this and this would be kind of cool, I'm just gonna mess around with it, or did you always have in the back of your mind like this character and this brand that you could build around it?
Well, the character, began in 2019 when I was showing how the cards were being cut. I wasn't really showing them out that I was putting them in larger art pieces. I was just kind of, it was just for the shock value of it, really. And it was great to see people, either love or hate it. It didn't really bother me one way or another. Any kind of response was going to give me my direction, right? It was going to help me along. So hating it was kind of like, yeah, I expect a lot of people to do that, and um as I got a little bit more into it, and I started putting cards, let's say, in replacing cards in horror movies. So I took the characters out of a film and replaced it with a sports card, and then reenacted the scene on my iPhone. And it was like completely, no budget or anything. These sets were painted by my hand, like or in a like in the, I reenacted a scene in Jaws, and the damn card's in a kiddie pool, and I'm kind of just dangling a card in front of a fake shark, and it was just so absurd, but it entertained people because because now they could see like their favorite movie scene now played out with the character replaced by a sports card. It was just bizarre, but entertaining at the same time. So like that little spark was like, oh, how far can I take it? And then the cards themselves became the artifact of the post, of the entertainment. So I was like, I'm not going to throw this card out. Why don't I present that as the artwork? So people can collect it, and then they could refer back to the content that I made and said, look, this card is a part of that story. So it really brings a regular printed sports card into a completely different area, to where it has a new story, and it has a very individual story. So in essence, they all become these one of a kind pieces of art.
Right.
And once you have that in place, then it's like, oh, let's just start sticking my art in there so that people get a sense of more who I am. And I kept anonymous during that whole thing, because I wanted still for things to play out as if they didn't know what to expect next, because they didn't know my face, they didn't know what I look like, and that added to the mystery of it all. And so like I had full on luchador masks at first, these that would cover my entire face, so that at least if I was shooting a film with me in it, you wouldn't be able to see because of the mask, and that's pretty much the primary reason I wore a full mask like that. But I wanted to get myself in the content because, I'm, destroying these cards and kind of like just flipping the script on an average card collector's like idea of what card collecting is. So,
Right.
and then it just like I said, it kept progressing. It kept progressing, and I made a treasure hunt out of a card, and made a short film that like kind of a 3-part short film that explained how I was, quote unquote, killing cards. But then instead of killing a final card, I went and I buried it somewhere in Brooklyn, and I left clues online for the people to find. So now you get someone who is enjoying my art can now actually be a part of it, which is so cool. I just love the fact that, like, someone can dig their hands into my process and be a part of it. I grew up loving the movie Goonies, the Goonies. It was just one of my favorite movies of all time. And I could watch that a million times. And when I was a kid, I loved watching it. And it was a bunch of kids going on a treasure hunt, and I was like, how can I do that with my art? And certainly painting a picture is not really doing that. A kid can't, participate, but I can set up a treasure hunt where I'm using sports cards, and then have my audience kind of feel like that kid again. And that's how I figured out how my art can make someone feel like that, is by literally doing what the movie kind of did, but in my own way, and through sports cards and through the hobby. And that's happening again really, really soon. Actually, I have I'll actually show you a little preview of what it involves.
Okay. All right. We like breaking news.
I just purchased that.
Okay.
So there's
Very
a box
cool.
of 89 Fleer. It's sealed by the
Very cool.
exchange. And this is gonna be a lot of fun.
Yeah, very cool. I like just thinking about the way that you brought to life like a new kind of way of playing in the hobby. I'm like a firm believer that as industries grow, like there has to be innovation. There has to be, it can't be static. It can't just stay the way that it has been forever. It just can't. So to me, things like this mm, bring like a whole new life to a hobby that, basically has been unchanged for ever. I mean, other than, they now make like chromium cards and refractors, and they have red, yellow, blue, silver, all these other colors. But bringing in like this whole new segment of it where artists now can let their creative juices flow, if you will. And to the point that you just made, like making an interactive experience for people in the hobby, other than just, going to the hobby shop and buying a, pack of cards, or searching eBay for, singles of players that you like. This really brings in like a whole new activity. And so that's really cool. I'm very curious to see what happens with that box that you just showed. Um, so, you mentioned how you started off just, doing it, and you started doing these videos, and then you started to, at what point did you take that turn where you started doing this work on, the bigger cards, like the Luca rookie, and the old school? You did like what, the Bill Russell. Um, Talk
Yeah.
about that. Like, how did you then jump into that area?
Yeah, at first, I wasn't really cutting up expensive cards because they never had to, because they would just hide in the paintings, and it really didn't matter what card they were. As soon as I started introducing the art into the card itself, then the card became part of the subject matter, even though I was kind of just dancing around. I wasn't really making, like, I wasn't the athlete, and the card itself is kind of like was kind of like the backdrop for me. And it didn't really matter what the player was, or the sport or whatever. Just the look of the card was going to be fun for me. Like in the beginning, I would use maybe just like a booklet card that had a couple of patches. I would take the patches out and illustrate inside, or make something out of refractors. And that card cost me $10. Luckily I was able to sell it at auction for quite a bit more than that. Put quite a bit of work into it. um and then you get the every once in a while you get a comment, and it's like, why don't you just cut up something more expensive? If just kind of egging me on, kind of like saying, if you want to really shock us, you do something a little
Right.
bit more. And one of the first people that actually did that with me, his handle is at Chris G613 on Instagram. He is awesome. He's a Buffalo fan. He lives up in Buffalo. And he's the one who was telling me, get into more expensive cards. And that's the kind of response I was telling you about, that there's some kind of direction. If I hear if someone gives me something that makes sense to me, I was like, yeah, you know what? If I start doing something a little bit more expensive, then it's like, what if the player becomes a little bit more important in the piece? What if the context of what the card is becomes a little bit more important? I started slow. I went to a show once in Long, I think it was upstate, White Plains, New York, and I just bought a box of Donruss Optic, and I pulled a rookie Sony Michelle, and it was an auto number to 75. I held on to it for a while, and then once it got into my head what Chris was saying for me to do, I used that card to illustrate, an homage to Banksy's card going through the shredder. I mean, his print going through the
Yep.
shredder. So I did that with Sony Michelle, and that liberation is kind of like, it was just like an epiphany moment, because it was like, oh my God, I took a card that was worth $75, and technically I made it into a card that's worth nothing. But then again, on the other side, it, that Sony Michelle card, probably everybody kind of knows from watching that content. And what do the other 74 do? I don't know. They're sticking in someone's collection, maybe getting sold every once in a while. But that one's like on blast now. So I was like, that's cool. I actually built a story, with that card. And and then it became a little easier, and then it came a little bit more fun. And then someone was like, then, well, the 61 Fleer was the year after. I think maybe, that was mid 2021, but the Luca was the year before that, in 2020. And the card wasn't really expensive either. I mean, it's $100 card at the time. I had to buy two of them because I used one actual card just so I could put that on so that it would have the original back. But then that was an investment of a couple $100 to get that card going. So then, you kind of have a taste for it, but everybody's paying attention to it because it's Luca and it's
Right.
it's a rated rookie. So people are, know that it's a popular card at the time.
Right.
So it just kind of felt natural that, people were going to start hitting me up. And that's generally what happens now. People kind of hit me up and like, they're sending me either expensive cards that may be altered a bit. So they're not gradable, or they're just, they're very low grade, and having me alter it and turn it into a one of a kind. So that's what happened with the 1961 Fleer set. A friend of mine, sports.collector, he's on Instagram, and he gave me basically this set of maybe the 5 best cards from the 61 Fleer set, and they were altered. So so I took those cards and made them one of a kinds for him, and they sold for a good amount of money for an altered card, I would suppose, right? I mean, it's card art is kind of like gaining momentum.
Right.
It's not like I sold a rookie, it's not like the Wilt Chamberlain rookie that's a 6-figure card, really. But it was a genuine card. It was a real 61 Fleer, and it was in good shape otherwise, other than the alteration. But yeah, it's it became that people want to send me things. So like right now in the wings, I have a Jeter 93 SP. I have 54 Topps Ted Williams. I got a bunch of like really unique autographs of like Pacquiao and Bill West that a friend of mine gave me last year. That's coming up really soon. So it's just become this fun game, but I still want to do that kind of conceptual thing and make more elaborate stories out of my process and everything. So like I include the art now with telling stories along, so that people have something to share when it's like, oh, you this card, you don't know what that is. That card has a hole through it, but I still paid $100 for it because it went to this story and this this concept that this artist is doing. So like the card becomes half collector by hobby and then half collector for an art collector.
Yeah, no, that makes connecting it with like a story. I really like that. I really like the creativity behind that. The emotional connection.
It's about love. It's about people. It's about connection.
It's all about connections.
But it's not
that it creates between the person who has the piece and kind of bringing that piece to life with that story that you make. There is like a psychological exchange there, an emotional exchange, which I think, again, like freshens up the hobby. It brings a new avenue into the hobby. And again, it doesn't have to be for everybody, but for the people who enjoy that kind of stuff, like that's a whole new creation and segment now that's being done that people can get into. And I tend to agree with you on, like even on the Luca rated rookie, right? Like how many of those are there? So many. And so like having the one that you did makes it, like you said, like a one of one compared to just everybody else's rated rookie, right? And to me, like that, there's definitely value in that, right? Even more so if you were to take, you know, like you said with Sony Michelle, a card numbered to 75, but now like this is the only one out of those 75 that has this twist on it.
Yeah.
And I think that as you know, as like this niche grows and the card art area grows, that people will start to recognize that that unique value, right? Even just taking like a base card and having an artist like yourself, you know, put some creativity into it, you now have a one of one unique piece of art, you know. And what I'd love for you to touch on, because you mentioned it briefly earlier about the work that goes into it. So explain to us like the process that goes into making one of these cards, and you know, like the hours and hours that go into this.
So in the beginning, it was me just being a little brash about it. You know, I would take a card, maybe split it in half, take the patch out, replace it with my, you know, purple emoji, you know, logo that I was using at the time, which I still do. I just removed the face, but and then like signing it, you know, with card killer where the auto would be, and just saying, hey, you know, like, oh, this card was killed by me, blah blah blah. You know, there wasn't much involved with it. I got pulled that off in a matter of a couple hours. As I started injecting more of my original art concepts with it, is when they start getting a little bit more intricate. So you're cutting up refractor cards, you're hunting down those cards first. Either you're on eBay trying to find a lot that's appropriate, or you're at a card show. And you know, lately the refractor bins used to be 3 or 4 for $1. Now they're like $1 a piece. So it's like it becomes a little bit of an expensive hunt to get the cards. And you don't get a whole lot of color out of a card. Like, you know, you'd be lucky, you know, to get a little, you know, half-inch piece of gold, and you know, you want to use that, you know, prominently in a card. It's a little hard to find, but you know, you hunt it down, you get used to it, and then you start your process, and you put the art in. And it seems to be that over the course of a year, each card got a little bit more and more intricate as time went on. So a little bit more time gets spent. I do a gold leafing process with, you know, actual, you know, traditional gold leaf process, which is using a special type of glue and a special type of you know, sheets of gold and everything like that. It takes about an hour for me just to get my name and the one of one on there with that gold leaf process. So it's like that's just one notch on the belt for the card. So, you know, finding making stencils, cutting it right, gluing it down, cleaning it, you know, the more pieces are involved, the more the hours just go, you know. So you're doing it for quite some time. Now I have a process where I'm covering the card with an epoxy resin on top of it, so it kind of just seals everything up. And then I put a sheet of acetate on top of that, so that it can't get like so it doesn't get like scuffed if you rub it wrong, you know, like something protective. So that's a process, because the damn epoxy is so temperamental. You have no clue. Like, I have to sit there and watch it for 2 hours so that bubbles don't pop up and, you know, and get stuck in the resin, because bubbles just like are like my enemy, man. So that's like a night. I got to sit there for a night and watch, like, you know, my card cure basically, and not screw up, and got to be there when and fix it if it doesn't. So like all these processes that I develop over time, I just kind of add to the card. So now I'm sitting here with a process of, you know, my cards may take me 20 hours, 25 hours. If someone's paying top dollar commission, you know, I'm not selling them short. I'm doing it all.
Right.
So yeah, it just slowly build up over time. And now it's like, that's why my commission's kind of like, I tell people right off the bat, you got to give me 6 to 8 months.
Right.
Not because it takes that long for me to do the damn card, but like, I'm backed up quite a bit, and it's
Right.
not the only thing I do in this world. So
Right.
yeah, so it time is of essence. When I do the apparel and I do the hats, I'm looking at, that's about the equivalent of 2 big cards. So that's like, that's at least a week's work
Yeah.
when you're doing the hats. So what do you get paid for a week's work? Like,
Right.
and then then you see
Exactly.
why, I have to charge what I charge. But yeah, I don't mind the fact that, sometimes as an artist, you would think making your work more concise and finding a way to cut down the time, obviously, because time is money. Right now I'm in a place where I just want to make it right. I don't really pay attention to the hours. I just like, I just dedicate it to getting the best product out there right now. And if there's something along, that comes along that will streamline it, that I'm fine with that. But right now it's more like, I'm exploring this process, and
Right.
that's the fun for me, because I'm in it, like, especially when I'm doing the apparel and I'm lost in like, where is this thing going next? That's the enjoyment that I get out of my process. It's like, it happens all the way through.
Right. So
Yeah.
what would you say has been the most intricate and time consuming card you've done thus far?
Thus far, it's the one you have.
Got it.
And it's close. I mean, the wilt for me was pretty involved, because I started putting what I would call accents around my
Okay.
designs, which is just a little sliver of a lighter color that's wrapped around like a bigger swirl
Yep.
for me.
Yep.
And I did that a lot with the wilt, because obviously, I knew that was going to be a bigger card. So, but I certainly did it with yours, and yeah, when it starts to come together and you're like 90% through, then you get that satisfied feeling.
Right.
So you probably have the example, is what I'm
Right.
saying.
Got it. And I have to assume that each one you try to like push it a little bit further, right? And like build upon it, and to your point, like add those accents and then look at that and build on that, right?
Yours is actually 3D. Yours
Yeah.
has levels. So I've started doing that too. I've also been using clay to build a little foundation underneath, so that the cards refractor pieces are lifted in certain areas. But yours is definitely a multi-level one too. I kind of wanted to make it a little thinner in your case, because a thicker card, it just didn't appeal to me with that one. But yours definitely has like a base, and then a rise in it, and then some of the swirls that you see kind of wrap around a little bit, if you can tell when you kind of go like that with it.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's another one of my new things, is I try to make it a little bit elevated, so there's
Right.
different levels to it. Yeah.
Yeah. And see, like, so to me, like, that's exciting. Like, knowing that each piece you're really thinking like, okay, like how can I like bring this to the next level, right? And like where that will end up leading, like 6 months from now, a year from now, 2 years from now, that innovation, like that's exciting to me, because it's the card companies aren't doing it.
Jazz win this one.
What? Bro, what are you talking about, man?
I mean,
Yeah.
like they kind of are, like with these different, like artsy projects, but not really. And so seeing like this community of artists kind of like take that area and be like, okay, well, we're gonna do this. To me, like it that's where like real innovation comes from. People trying to better it, and then hopefully, like the companies will actually catch on and start to innovate, more and more.
Having trouble managing your valuable collection and finding price transparency in the sports card market? Me too. That's why I use CardHedge. CardHedge is a brilliant price analysis and collection management tool. Track all your grades across PSA, CSG, HGA, SGC, BGS, and as well as your raw cards. Card Hedge pulls their research from sites like eBay, StarStock, MySlabs, and Golden Auctions. You want an accurate picture of the sports card market? Yeah, me too. With over tens of thousands of cards in their system, Card Hedge is the definitive sports card price guide. Quickly search by card, player, or set. Sort by price or percentage change. It has a lot of awesome advanced features. So what are you waiting for? Join today for only $14.99.
Yeah, I see.
What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, you know how it's run. I mean, they go and they print. They're
Right.
printing cards and they're cutting it. The fact that you can, like, maybe there's probably going to be a way to do it where they're assembling cards piece by piece, and maybe a card has multiple pieces, but they would have to engineer that, and that wouldn't
Right.
be a printing job. That'd be like some kind of machine assembling this, one at a time, and then running it on a line. That's something that I don't do. I just I'm making them by hand. But when you see them in person, there is a little bit of a different feel to them than a printed card.
Right.
There's some, it's hard to even put my finger on it. I just like it, and when my audience gets my work and they're like, this is my favorite card now.
It's a big bluish. I'm guessing that's significant.
Then I'm like, you probably own 10, 20,000 cards, and an average collector, and you just said that was the best one. So there's definitely some kind of eye appeal to assembling cards than it is to printing them. And I can't even imagine where they can take it. It would be amazing to see it, but to be able to sit here and innovate that, it feels exciting to me, because I think that the card companies someone may take a stab at that at some point.
Yeah.
But they would have to, like I said, start fresh. It wouldn't be a printing press. It'd be some kind of machine that puts it together, maybe like 3D printing or something. Who knows?
Right. It'd be cool also to see them do, and I feel like this would be very easy for them to do actually, but do like a redemption style with a card artist. So like you could pull a redemption, right, of whatever hot player it is that year, and then you can get like a one-of-one piece of card art, as that redemption. That would be cool to see him like start with something like that before they kind of like go all in on, reinventing the wheel, if you will.
Yeah. It definitely seems like that. I've spoken about that too with my other card artist friend, and that seems like the natural first step.
Yeah.
You could do that, because then you can actually get the one-of-ones handmade into the collector's hands through the pack, without the pack being, half a pound and
Exactly.
totally weighing way too much. The redemption program is probably going to be the best way too, because then as the artist gets aware of the fact that it was pulled, they can make it to order.
Right. Exactly.
It's like if the Mike Trout one-of-one never gets pulled, and that card artist spent a bunch of time making it, then what are you going to do with it? Because you can't just give it away to someone else, because it could get pulled.
Right.
But like I said, they can make it to order as the redemptions get redeemed, and just have a decent amount of time to give them. Sounds reasonable. But the companies will have to work with us and get us basically like promo pieces,
Right.
so that we can do them. And that's that. Like I said, I think that's a natural progression. I don't think that's out of hand. And the bigger it gets, I think that step is very possible.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. That seems like a very easy way for the card companies to start getting exposure into the card art world, outside of like the Topps projects that they've done, right? But those again are like prints. They're not handmade, one-of-one.
Still a good step though.
100%. Yeah, 100%. Like that's, you can see that like they took this step into, working with people outside of the card industry and, integrating them in. And I think to your point, yeah, that is a great step to continue more and more down that line of uniqueness, right? And being able to, because let's be real, like these companies are also always looking for new products to offer to their customers also, right? And there's only so much that you can do with a sports card. So it seems like getting into the art world side of it may be like that next phase, along with the NFT side of it as well. I think those two segments really give the card industry room to grow outside of just printing more cards or making 5 more, colors this next year. So now your rookie has 400 rookie cards instead of, 250. But okay, what are some, without getting into too much detail, what are some things that you're kind of looking to line up and expand your brand and what you're working on more and more down the line here?
Well, without getting into too much detail, I would want to find a way to present card art in a consistent manner for for everybody in the hobby and people who collect art as well. It seems that everybody who's making card art these days, releasing it here or there, they do whatever they want with them, and it's fine. And everybody's selling their work individually. But it's to find some kind of unifying way to represent it, so it could be presented in a form that kind of will make it at least kind of come together with a little bit more of a legitimacy, and so that people don't have to be like, oh, that's just that's just a piece of craft made by so and so. So we can categorize it and then be able to present it in a way that's consistent with the art world, and that so people's perception of it at least is on its way to being totally legit, and ever on the rise, connecting the two cultures. This is a project that I would want to be heavily involved in this year. As you mentioned, the NFT market is there's room for innovation if I think you're just making it a little bit more inventive than just selling JPEGs. I would want something where there's a connection, especially since my art is on the canvas and it's off it. So I like that idea of having it well-rounded. The digital market, it's burgeoning. Obviously, it's huge in its own way, but it's going to keep going. It's not, this is just the beginning. So that's another area. I don't have a clear picture in my head of that all, but they can all maybe join together at some point.
Yeah.
I have so many different approaches when it comes to the art itself, like whether or not I go back to bigger paintings. I still think that I would tie sports in it at this point.
Yep.
I love nostalgia. So like even old video games, it is a subject matter that I enjoy, that my audience enjoys. And then I can, deliver my own message through. The apparel is big for me. I want to see my hats all over the place. I mean, why wouldn't I?
Right.
I mean, so that, I definitely would want to expand that industry. Like, if these hat companies can figure out a way to chew my 50-hour process down to something that's more reasonable, then I think, we got something going there for sure. Because anytime I show my hats to people, they respond to it. I get a good response from it.
It's unbelievable. I mean, I will make sure that we have a nice little video of one of them right here during this interview, because they are absolutely amazing.
But yeah, there's all those different projects lined up. I I just bought me a very, very large vintage Star Wars figurine,
Okay.
which I'm looking to customize just like I do the hats.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Very cool. I
Yeah,
like
don't
that. That's neat. That's neat.
So it's
Um,
I could actually see, you can see it right here. If that makes sense.
oh, yep. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Nice.
that's in the wings. That's gonna get
That's
well
gonna be
decorated.
cool. It's been cool this year to see, well, not just this year, but the past like year and a half, to see like these nostalgic toys and comics and video games all start to, creep up in their value as well. So
Mhm.
I think like now adding in this customization into these already valuable nostalgic pieces, um I like where your mind is going with all this stuff. I fall into the category of people that enjoy seeing this creativity and seeing this progression. So let me ask, when you first started, not like way back, when you first started like with the cards, right?
Okay.
Um, to now, from the artist's point of view, how much more have you seen the interest in this segment grow? And from both ends, from the artists in it making the cards, and also from the consumers on the other end coming in and wanting them and being attracted to them.
Well, I mean, it's from 2014 to 2019. I was using the cards in the fine art world, and it wasn't it was garnering a few things. I mean, there's a documentary that I have about my art at the time in 2018. Um, that was directed by Spike Lee, and it's on Uber. So you could see that at Uber Presents. It's one of the, one of my few jobs that I do is I do that driving around here in my city. So you could see where it was going at that time, and within a year it was completely different because the purple guy came out, and it really was it felt like 0 to 100 for me, because as 2019 was progressing, I was starting to see people take the interest, and the spark really came when I was started to sell, when they started to sell, when people were like, that's a $2 card, how did it sell for $250? um I could do that, right? So it's like, yeah, go ahead, please. I mean, I've been egging people on. It was like, this is going to be fun. Just give it a try, and there are people that, over time I found out that, they had made collectible cards by cutting up cards and making collages, and obviously sketch cards have been around for decades. Art and cards really have never been, um, it's not brand new. It is
Right.
not brand new. And the first cards we know, those tobacco cards, they're all illustrated. They're all art.
Right.
But this kind of, mixing concepts in sports. There are innovators. Tim Carroll has been around since, as far as I know, 2007 or 8, like that. He found his niche by cutting cards and then making larger cards, and they're basically mosaic paintings. Brilliant work. He's been at it ever since. He's at every national. I saw him. I met him last year. It's awesome. Matthew Lee Rosen, dude's in Chicago. He's also doing concept art with sports and everything. So you could check out his work. They've been doing it for some time. It's just it kind of converged, in 2019, when I just started making my own art cards for me. And that Tops project elevates everything, because now artists all over the place are getting cards made of their work.
Right.
So that this is like that jump where you see, oh my God, like now we're rolling in, and you're seeing new card artists come out month by month, jumping into the arena, jumping in with new concepts. I've been, attached at the hip to Donnie B Collectibles. We basically started our Instagram pages the first week, and he was like, well, who the hell are you? And then but then we've collaborated a lot and worked together and stuff, and we're helping the card art community be recognized by promoting and lifting people up and getting their cards seen, because it's everybody who's jumping into the arena is having a hell of a lot of fun doing it. And that means a lot to me as an artist, because it for me, like I said, it's half the experience, and then it's enjoy the art while you experience something really cool about it. And
Yeah.
that's what's happening, and that's what I feel the scene is. And really is just watching it go, like, go straight up, since for the last 2-3 years is awesome. It's awesome.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then, when we're on the top of things, and we get to look back and say, remember when, we couldn't sell our cards for $30 a piece, and God knows, because the sky's the limit. Art is perception, man. It matters what you believe.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to get people to see what I see, and then believe that. So I always like to say I do my work with integrity, and I don't want to sell anybody short with it. But I believe it myself. I'm wearing a goddamn mask, for Christ's sakes.
Right. Yeah. No, I firmly believe that we are in a almost like a whole new renaissance when it comes to art, the opportunities that the artists have that they've never really had before, especially again in the NFT space. I see the artist, over this next decade or two, really like getting back into like the spotlight, like it was back in the Renaissance, when it was like, people knew who Michelangelo was, people knew who Donatello was, people knew who all of these artists were, and all of these people that were at that point in that time in history pushing the limit and innovating on the art that everybody else was already used to. I feel very heavily that we are like at that point again, and the artists are going to do that same thing over the next decade or two. So I'm excited to see, where this like concept art and individual artists can really like take leaps and bounds here that, let's be real, over the last few hundred years, like artists have been being screwed. So
Need it now.
It's my money and I need it now.
It's my money and I need it now.
It's my money and I need it now.
it's refreshing to see like opportunities like this to come along. And I know some of the things that you're working on, and it's exciting to think about, what the future has for this segment. And like you said, like for the community of artists, not just to help yourself, but to bring along with you all of these other people who enjoy doing the same, work that you're doing, and enjoy giving the consumer on the other end that same, like excited feeling of having this one of one piece. So yeah, I just like that's where I'm at with the whole art kind of scene and genre in whole.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like I said, it's so much fun to watch people do it, and there's no shortage of it. I would never be able to do it alone.
Right.
It's the bottom line, because everybody's kind of coming together and be like, look what this guy does, look what that guy does, look what this girl does. You got you got RPS in the fold right now. If you don't know who RPS is, Peter Pacman and his cousins, they're making hip hop music for the hobby. So they're innovating that as well, and we're seeing that, and I'm, happy to use their music in my post. They let me do it. Thank God. Cheers, Pete. But yeah, it's fun because it's like, that's an area that I never would dream of getting into. I'm involved with music on another, a different side of it, but never like when it comes to, it didn't cross my mind. And when I watch that happen, I'm like, that's real innovation right there. So obviously, we kind of work in tandem. I have a podcast with him and Donnie B. And we've been talking about this stuff, for the last year or so. And, almost every new artist is bringing something new, fun and new to the game. Like, I just saw this dude, his handle is Piggy Banks, and he made like this suitcase where the art cards are on the face of the suitcase, like these lucite cases or whatever. And he's doing, the cards on like big, metal, gold chains and stuff like that. But it's a lot of fun. So everybody comes in and he's like, I got this, I got my own style.
Right.
And how do I make it work in card art? You definitely can.
Right.
And everybody's doing that. And it's just fun to watch like a new thing drop, goddamn, almost every day.
Yeah.
And
See,
it's just like,
that's another thing I like about the art is that, especially in the sports card world, because it's, the new thing, it really allows for you to see like true price discovery and true like market demand, right? Like, I don't care if what, other people say, oh, well, that shouldn't be worth that much. Like, okay, you don't think it should be worth that much, but that literally means nothing. The market is going to decide what it should be worth. And so tying that in with the innovation that you were just talking about, that I'm interested to see like how that market demand is able to drive up these prices, because, you're not buying it from Topps or Panini. Like, you're not buying it, there's not like a suggested retail price. You guys are making these pieces that you're able to sell for whatever the market deems it's worth. And to me, like, that's exciting, because it's just that innovation. It's pushing the envelope, and it's only going to be a matter of time until, these card companies are like, hey, like, we're missing out on a big new segment of the industry.
Yeah, right now it's a lot of it's in the hands of the artist. Like, we have to push all the time because the message is getting out to more and more people and the collectors, but selling that perception, like I said, will take time. And the bigger companies are not doing it, with us individually or anything like that. So we're the ones saying, hey, believe in us, believe in us. It's just an uphill battle. So we just got to keep doing it. And hopefully one day, then it'll come through like that. In some ways, I think it has, because you're here talking with me about it. I talk to people quite often about, what's going on. So, it really is just like the fuse is lit, and just how long is that fuse? But like that, it's not going out, because we're pushing, and I'm going to be pushing as much as I can for as long as I can, for as long as I'm alive.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. This has been very fun. But before we go, what are some of the best places that people could find you or get in touch with you or hear like what you're working on?
I'm a one-trick pony, man. It's Instagram. The way it's laid out, my story is kind of like a timeline. So if you go all the way back and you start from the beginning, you see where it went and where it's going. And I haven't really excluded anything out of that. So you kind of see the full picture. I'm on Twitter at the Card Killer, but that's just like here and there. I'll drop a thing or two.
Yep.
I'm not going on that heavy, but You know, that's about it. You can get in touch with me through DMs in Instagram. You know, I respond as soon as I can.
Got it. I'll make sure I link your Instagram here in the description. And you mentioned the podcast as well. Where's the easiest place to find the podcast?
The podcast is called Outside the Wax. It's on Spotify.
Got it.
Spotify will be the easiest place to find it. I've seen it on like the podcast app, but like I usually direct people towards Spotify because most people have that. And we're about 11 episodes in. We're about to record the 12th. We've had a small hiatus, but we'll be getting back into it. And
Awesome.
And yeah, that's definitely a lot of fun discussions between me, Donnie, and Pete. Usually on our takes in the hobby and our collision of cultures, if you will.
Right.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you again for your time and this fun conversation. And thank you everybody for stopping in and hanging out with us. And we look forward to seeing you on the next one.